Andy Danielsen, which if you were on the last call, I just bragged too much probably about my affinity for Mayo, being a Minnesotan and everything that Mayo contributes to our identity and our economy. And we have one of the top leaders here. So Andy, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Christian, and happy to be here. And I'm glad that Sami Youssef, my colleague, could join you last time. Mayo Clinic is a very special place. It's an interesting place. We're in Rochester, Minnesota, a small town in the middle of cornfields. I enjoyed Chris's introduction, and yes, I'm a bit of an amateur historian on Mayo Clinic, and I have to say, you do have a bit of a resemblance to William Worrell, who was the father who did come over to first New York. And why? Because his wife had tuberculosis, and at the time, the thought was you go to a drier climate and you do better. So they started in New York. She wasn't doing as well, so they moved further west, settled in Minnesota for a variety of reasons, but one of which was at the time there was the Civil War was ongoing, and he wanted to still do a practice of medicine. And he was doing physicals for Union Army soldiers because Rochester's at a confluence of several rivers, which of course was transportation those days. And he built this little practice of medicine, starting with giving physicals to Union soldiers. He ended up having two sons, and that's who Chris looks. He looks like Charlie Mayo, which was one of the sons. And the two sons, William and Charlie, actually founded Mayo Clinic. And here's the amazing thing, I can't help but talk about this. So at the time in the US, hospitals were, I don't know if you've seen the show, but Little House on the Prairie, for those of us who are old enough, right? One physician who works in one town, who does all of the healthcare and gets paid in chickens and, and pigs or whatever. And because there was so much business with these Union soldier physicals, the father said to the sons, hey, why don't you stick around? Normally, right, I train you how to be a physician. You'd go to your own little town and that'd be that. Why don't you stick around and help me here? And so they did, and they start working together. And they understand, wow, when there's three of us here, it allows us to do a couple of things. One of us can leave and travel around and find best practices in medicine, and the other two can, hold down the fort and hold down the practice. And then they said, wow, this works because we go around and we find the best practices, we bring it back and our practice improves. And then it improved, and then it improved a little bit more. And slowly they started understanding we can bring the best of the best to our clinic, and it just builds on itself. Their big breakthroughs that one of them went over to Paris and understood that this guy named Lister had an idea of aseptic technique. And he sterilized his instruments in between surgeries, and lo and behold, his outcomes were good, meaning people didn't die of massive infections in between surgical cases. They bring that back to Minnesota, and in a lot of ways, that's the birth of Mayo Clinic, because people started saying you go to Mayo Clinic and you don't die from your surgeries. That was one thing. So this group practice of medicine, which of course now we take for granted, but at the time was innovative. And the second was specialization. So they said, hey, this is working pretty good on the group practice. Let's hire more physicians. And then those physicians could specialize. So now all I do is, one of the brothers was just the gallbladder person, does gallbladder surgeries and becomes very good at gallbladder surgeries, and outcomes get better. So long story short, the Mayo Clinic is a super special place. Yes, birthed by the Mayo family, who understood group practice of medicine and specialization, things we take for granted today, but just a wonderfully fantastic place. If you ever can get your care here, it's amazing. So that said,
Andy, we are going to capture that. We're going to send it over to Mayo, and I hope they post that. That was a brilliant explanation.
Yeah, it's
love you guys even more.
I could go on and on as you could.
We are running out of time.
Yeah,
and
I will go fast.
I do want to move to what you need at this point. What are you looking for at Mayo?
Okay, scientist by training. I run Mayo Clinic Ventures. We do two things. We handle all the intellectual property coming out of Mayo Clinic. So we're a source of new company formation. So folks like Ann and others who are looking for technology, patents, intellectual property to start companies around, we average about 15 to 20 new cos formed per year. So source of intellectual property. So how can folks help me? If you're interested in looking through our portfolio of technologies, which spans the gamut of biotherapeutics, device, health IT, diagnostics, we're absolutely excited and happy to talk to you. We have a $250 million venture fund. That's out of our endowment. And we have a $750 million strategic capital fund that's off our balance sheet. So we are also investors. So how can folks help us? Much like Nola mentioned, and Anne, if you are a startup in obviously the healthcare space, we do Series A, Series B, occasionally a Series C growth stage. That's probably less our sweet spot. But if you're doing something interesting and impactful in healthcare and are looking for seed, Series A or Series B funding, we're absolutely happy to take a look at what you're doing.
Andy, in the ecosystem that you get to rely on when you bring an investment into Mayo, we have the Mayo Clinic platform, one of the most advanced clinical laboratories in the world that they're moving specialty diagnostics forward with. Sammy spent a whole day at the Yacht Club in San Francisco and sourced maybe 20 to 30 of our companies. These guys are great. They're real good people. I hope you contact Andy and help him out. Andy, thanks so much. I know you're so busy. Appreciate you